Hey everybody, it's Mercyfulfate, the Necro Gnome. I am sitting here in the TERA Online beta test this weekend. This is beta test number 5. For those of you who aren't familiar with TERA, it is a MMO that is coming out May 1st, 2012. It is developed by a company called En Masse. I believe a bunch of their folks worked on Ion when they worked for NCSoft. For any of you that might have some reservations when looking into games that have anything to do with NCSoft, understand these folks are, not with them anymore. You'll notice a lot of the same quest interactivity, like clickable links inside the quest to make certain things highlight on your mini-map, etc. A lot of the artwork is very familiar. That's probably a good thing, though, because Ion was a visually appealing game. But as far as how the companies act, I'm not going to pass any judgment on En Masse at this time. If I've dealt with them before, obviously I'd be different. I could have an opinion, but I have nothing to form an opinion on. Anyway, I am sitting here. I've actually recorded some footage a few times now, and last night me and two of my guildies were able to finally sit down and get into one of the dungeons. And when we did, I ended up getting a lot more footage than I expected, and I originally had wanted to do 2 videos, or a 2-part video. Now I'm going to end up having to do 2 videos, it looks like. So right now I've just hopped onto a Pegasus. I want to just fly us around, let you guys see the surrounding environment, talk a little bit about the game, and then if I can't cram it all into one video, I will do a secondary video, which will be the first dungeon. Last night we ran it with, there was 3 of us, and I will talk more about that later. Anyway, TERA is a very interesting MMO from the standpoint of combat. It operates on a manual targeting style system, similar to Dungeons & Dragons Online, except for the fact that it works. I remember times in DDO when I did the trial for that game back when it came out. I played some dual-wielding golem-looking thing with maces, and I could have the enemy's head between my maces and a wall and be pounding the living shit out of it and not do any damage. With this, as you can see, I've got a crosshair right here, and I'm going to mount up. Instant cast on the mount when you're out of combat. I'm just going to ride out here, and I don't want to ride that way. Ride out the other gate of Lumberton, head up into the Fey Forest. The combat system with this, once you've got something marked on your crosshair, if you're in range to hit it, you hit it. There's no bones about it. That has been the biggest relief for me and a few of my guildies, is that finally we have a far more interactive, dynamic combat system than your typical lock onto the target, and as long as you're facing in the right direction, your spell will magically have a heat-seeking, effect built into it and hit the target. Anyway, we've got a warthog here. Obviously, I'm a little too high level for this area. Let me... what do we have here? Oh, he already died. I would have missed anyway. I was too far back. That's been the most difficult thing for me with the sorcerer, is that I've had a little bit of trouble judging distance. Although you can see that there is a meter counter there on the target. When you get to watch the boss footage, it is imperative you move out of the way, or don't get caught in like a whirlwind or any kind of AoE like that. And that's what was getting me killed the most, was having to try to judge distance and be able to move in time. So this is a game where, you know, if they're charging you, you sidestep them. A couple of the classes are actually able to block, and it's all real-time blocking. If you don't put your shield up, or if you don't use your axe shaft or whatever to block with, you will take the damage. And it's just such a sigh of relief to finally have a game where you're actually getting to control the outcome, and it's not just based on gear. It's not just based on, you know, stats. It's actually based on skill. And we actually did, and I unfortunately didn't record it, we did a world boss fight, or world elite fight, last night prior to going into the dungeon. And that elite was probably 5 times more difficult than any of the bosses we encountered in Secret Base, which was the first dungeon. And we actually survived his enrage because while myself and the healer were dead and running back, our berserker, who was tanking / DPSing for us, kited the guy around in circles while he went through his enrage, and once his enrage ended, we re-engaged him and finished him off. The other 2 of us engaged. But the game's got 8 different classes. There are 2 tanking classes. There's been a lot of talk about what they're going to do with the warrior. The primary tanking class is a lancer, and the lancer is a shield tanking class. They wield a gigantic lance in one hand, and they have a shield in the other, and so they can do real-time blocking. That's going to be the go-to class for tanks. I'm pretty sure every pug is going to want one of those instead of a warrior. The warrior, on the other hand, is probably the most difficult to master class in the game, and while a bunch of people are probably going to want to try it, I can easily foresee that class having a terrible reputation because of people not being able to play it adeptly enough for pugs to trust a warrior in their group. The warrior wears leather armor instead of plate, or in this game metal, like the lancer does. So they are significantly squishier. And on top of that, they operate off of real-time evasion versus blocking. So their whole goal is, when the enemy is swinging, that they sidestep, or they roll, or they flip over. And it's going to require a lot more concentration for someone to play a warrior than a lancer. And on top of that, the warrior's other interesting element is that they do health sacrificing abilities that will cause their health to drop, along with the fact that they're already squishy and they're flirting with getting smacked in the face, you know, because they're right up there in the front, and they are the tank, or they might be the off tank, or what have you. They do operate in 2 different stances as well, so you can play a DPS warrior, or you can play a tanking warrior. From what a lot of people have been talking about over on TERA, the Korean TERA, that I guess is already live, that they've been patching the warrior repeatedly in the direction of making it a more DPS-oriented class. I had actually been looking forward to trying it as a full-blown tank, but you know, we'll see what happens. At this point, my main's going to be a sorcerer. As far as healing classes go, you've got 2.
We'll stay strong.
We're going to fly back to the capital city just so you have some more beautiful scenery to see. And we actually made some money last night. With the healing classes, you have a priest, which is your primary healing class, and then you have the mystic, which is a support healing class / jack of all trades. Unlike World of Warcraft or Star Wars: The Old Republic Rift, etc., you don't have specializations that I've noticed like those games. So you're not having to key in on got to choose this healing power over this crowd control, etc. So in the case of the Mystic has the ability to heal, and they've got some really interesting heals, and healing in this game is either you activate a spell and then target your you pick your target, you mouse over your target, and then you reactivate the spell again, and it will fire the spell. Or you might be dropping healing crystals on the ground, which are far more significant than ever clicking on the light well in World of Warcraft. And then the other way, they do a lot of AoE heals in this game as well. From the dungeon last night, my guildie was saying that healing in this game was so much more fun than he's had in a long time with healing in other games. The Mystic is the only class that can summon pets. They've got thralls that can either tank for them or throw out some self-heals to, they self-heal the Mystic. And I think they might have a DPS thrall as well. They also have a whole bunch of different crowd controlling effects. They can curse the enemy. They can throw out, I think, 2 different buffs for the raid or party. I'm not sure if they do cleansing or not, but I think they do. And then they've got some pretty devastating AoE DPS. So this is one of those classes that, especially in a larger group environment, if the healing is covered, then they can, and the crowd then they can be making sure they've crowd controlled, and if crowd control is covered, then they can throw out some degenerative attacks or curses. They can throw out some AoE, and it just gives them a real well-rounded place in the team. But they're still capable healers to be able to go into a 5-man dungeon and absolutely hold their own and heal the group. I mean, last night we went through that dungeon, and there was just 3 of us, and we didn't even have a formal tank. It took us a long time. We had some issues with the trash. It would follow you, and so I jokingly led it back to the entrance. I may have some footage of that. And so we had to sneak back into the dungeon, and I had to kite the stuff back out of the room while we were able to get ourselves back together. But the Mystic side totally held it down with that Mystic last night, and it went wonderfully. The Priest, I don't know much about. I understand they've got quite a few AoE heals, but again, I'm not a healer, so I'm not familiar. As far as DPS go, there are 2 melee DPS, the Berserker, which is a 2-handed axe-wielding plate wearer, which is what Crystals was playing last night, and I think that's what his main is going to be. They, like the Lancer, are capable of blocking, so they can stand up in the front. They can take a little bit more damage than the other melees can, and they also are capable of blocking. The other melee is the Slayer. I played the Slayer just a tiny bit, just 5 levels or so. It was fun. I still liked the Warrior's feel more. That's probably just because I'm used to dual wield. I like playing Combat Rogue in World of Warcraft. I liked playing a Fury Warrior in World of Warcraft back during Wrath of the Lich King. Combat Rogue through Wrath and Cataclysm. But the Slayer, just like the Warrior, operates off of evasion tactics, flipping around, sidestepping, and they do a lot of whirlwind attacks with a giant 2-handed greatsword. So both melee wield 2-handed weapons, both strictly melee classes. The Warrior obviously can tank and wields dual swords, almost kind of like having 2 katanas. The other 2 classes in the game are both ranged, one of which obviously is what I'm sitting on right now, my Sorcerer. Sorcerer is the main spellcaster. They are currently #1 for damage dealing. I have been doing a lot of research on their DPS rotations, and apparently if you hate your life leveling it, by the time you hit level 48, that is when everything just keeps going uphill. And that's when you start seeing your truly phenomenal numbers. Um, and lastly, you have the Archer is the other ranged class. And again, that's just your typical marksman, hunter, ranger, whatever you want to call it. They do not have a wildlife pet in this game. Um, People have not been commenting on how great DPS is for archers, although they have been saying that archers at high-level PvP are incredibly fun to play. Um, that's one of those. Oh, and that's the other thing. If you fall in this game, yeah, you land with a thud. Um, I cannot say enough that you've got to take a look at TERA. The combat system takes a little while to get used to. This is actually controller friendly as well. So hook your computer up to your television, plug in your your PS3 controller or whatever if you want to figure out how to play it that way. I know one of my guildies was doing that and enjoying it a lot more. But this is totally well worth the time and well worth the investment. Anyway, this is Mercyfulfate, the Necro Gnome. Thanks for watching the video. Please stay tuned to see what else I happen to throw out. I'm new to doing these types of reviews. I actually have to credit TERA for being the first game that I've actually sat down and recorded footage from like a beta. I'm going to keep doing some reviews on other games, and any beta tests that happen to come up, I'll do some recordings of those and post them up on YouTube and have links to them over to my website, www.thenecrognome.com. And I'll also be posting some written reviews and commentary and rants and raves about just gaming, especially MMOs. But anyway, again, thanks for watching. Mercyfulfate, the Necro Gnome, signing off.